While many of us seem to have forgotten that James Cameron made a film in 2009 called Avatar in the wake of M. Night Shyamalan's absolutely disastrous film of the same name, Cameron has indeed finally come out with Avatar 2: The Way of Water. Like the previous film by Cameron, it turned out to be a huge success, but more on that later. First, we have to talk about Cameron's unusual idea to avoid the same pitfalls he suffered from in the first film. The first film, while undoubtedly successful and lucrative, had many criticisms relating to its treatment of indigenous cultures around the world. Cultural appropriation is a sensitive topic, and one that certainly deserves more attention. Cameron decided that to address the hate he got for racism in his first Avatar film, he would showcase each and every indigenous culture on Earth as a way to avoid appropriating any of them. This is going to be an interesting one. Strap yourselves in. We must also include a trigger warning for cultural appropriation for this video. If you're sensitive to this topic, this video may be upsetting. Viewer discretion is advised. Keep watching to hear more about Cameron's philosophy about racism and appropriation and the reasons behind this new film's huge box office success. Hint, it was made by James Cameron, who also created Titanic, another film that had massive box office success. For those of you who haven't seen the original Avatar film from Cameron, one of its main criticisms was its portrayal of race. We saw indigenous characters based on Native Americans portrayed as savages. Yes, in 2009, we were seeing Pocahontas-level white savior tropes and indigenous people as backward, violent monsters. Cameron, to his credit, heard and acknowledged these criticisms. The sequel portrays the real-world Maori tribe from indigenous Australia. He said, "We had a lot of discussions about cultural appropriation. How much is too much? At what point are you no longer honoring and celebrating a culture, but actually extracting and exploiting?" Unfortunately, while it does seem that Cameron was attempting to be more respectful in the sequel, it did see some of the same criticisms as the first. One Navajo artist on Twitter, Yue Begay, said, "Our cultures were appropriated in a harmful manner to satisfy, white flag emoji, white man savior complex." Begay urged other indigenous people to boycott the film. Part of the problem is Cameron's use of real-world dance and facial tattoos, meant to distinguish two fictional tribes in the film. While some viewers found this to be authentic, others were bothered by the exploitation of actual practices. One thing to remember, although we aren't sure if it helps much or not, is the Maori-born actor Cliff Curtis seems to be the person who suggested these real-world practices for the film. Dylan Cole, production designer of the film, said, "Having someone like Cliff Curtis help guide us and offer his ideas and blessings was very important. But Way of Water is a celebration of all cultures, not just pulling from any single one." While this is a nice sentiment, and we do appreciate that a Maori-born actor was cast for the role, we do wish that the person behind the look, feel, and portrayal of native cultures was actually from said culture, along with writers and other consultants. Dylan Cole, while talented, is not from indigenous Australia. He's a white man who grew up in California. Costume designer Deborah Scott, who is also from California and appears white, said, "I did a lot of research to start out with, and it was all around the world. The Arctic, off China, all these indigenous people that live on or near the water. And you learn a couple of things. They make things from their environment, they're handmade, and they're quite decorative. So we ended up centering more in sort of the wider Polynesian area, so it's not just Maori, because we were shooting in New Zealand. While all of this is fine, we still wish there had been some more proper representation behind the scenes, in the writer's room, rather than just a bunch of white people telling other culture stories." And let's not forget the actual indigenous people who were upset by the film. That alone is enough to say that, while Cameron and his team may have had good intentions, they have a long way to go before being able to claim true appreciation rather than appropriation. Anytime any piece of media tells someone else's story in an exploitative way, in this case showcasing real indigenous communities with very little input from natives of this area, thereby giving jobs and voices to white people first, is not appreciation, it is appropriation. Despite referring to and embracing real-world practices, the creative team on this film still maintains that they were trying to take influence from everything and nothing to create their own world. What's the lesson here? Even with the best of intentions, the only way to avoid cultural appropriation is to allow natives of whatever culture you want to explore to be the driving force behind these stories. Despite these criticisms, this film did indeed do much better than the original at the box office. Here's why. Cameron is saying that his success is a product of the world's desire to return to normal living. He said, "I'm thinking of it more in the terms of we're going back to theaters around the world. They're even going to theaters in China where they're having this huge COVID surge. We're saying as a society, we need this." Whether you agree with this statement and believe that returning to normalcy is worth the added health risk, or you think this is a selfish and harmful idea, no one can argue that this film is doing huge numbers. As of January 11th, the film has made $1.7 billion. As Cameron himself predicted, at the time of writing this article, the film has now grossed just over $2 billion. And all of that on a budget of $250 million. The success has launched James Cameron into a creative push, and he is now planning to make 3 more films up through Avatar 5. In fact, the 3rd installment has already finished filming, as well as parts of the 4th movie. In case you were curious, the current ranking of the film is number 6 highest grossing films of all time. Cameron's other films, including Titanic and Avatar 2009, are numbered 3 and 1 respectively. Say what you want about Cameron, but he certainly knows how to make a successful film. Have you seen the long-awaited sequel yet? What did you think? Did you think the cultural differences were in good taste or exploitative? Are you excited for the next 3 films? We would love to hear all your thoughts below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to our channel. If you want to stay on top of our videos, be sure to ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. See you all in the next one.